Thank you so much for bearing with us. Nothing like a good technical glitch to make you anticipate the event better. My name is Julia Krysiak. I'm one of the events team, and I have the great pleasure of putting together the Bristol Distinguished Address Series this year. Tonight's event is, as you've just seen, part of the Being Human Festival, the UK's national festival of the humanities. And just before I go on, there's no planned fire drills this evening, so if you do hear a fire alarm, please proceed nice and calmly through those doors, and the watershed staff will show you the way out. Partnering with the festival on this year's theme of landmarks offered the chance to delve into UWE's alumni treasure trove for someone truly special. And I am incredibly honoured that tonight's guest, who so fittingly aligns with a sense of being human and the landmarks his walking art creates, accepted my request, Sir Richard Long. We have an incredibly special evening prepared for you tonight that extends into the exciting offerings at our drinks reception, and I'm delighted that there are so many artists, printmakers, designers, illustrators, animators, photographers, filmmakers, art teachers and professors and art students here with us tonight. I'm honoured that students and staff from the Tate and Courtauld Institute in London are joining us via the live stream. We also have a very special guest, Mary Gormally, an art historian in visual culture and fashion theory, who taught for over 30 years at UWE's Bower Ashton site when it was still a polytechnic, and recalls early art lectures by Richard. I feel very lucky that we have Andrew Kelly to guide us in conversation with Richard this evening, who himself has made extensive cultural landmarks in Bristol during his 30 years running Bristol Ideas. His projects include Festival of Ideas, Brunel 200, Festival of the Future City, We the Curious, The Great Reading Adventures, and Encounters Film Festival. He is the author and editor of many books on Hollywood history, the future of cities, and Brunel. Over the past 15 years, he has interviewed more than 400 artists, writers, poets, scientists, politicians, journalists, and commentators, and now Sir Richard Long. I now introduce Dr. Jacqueline Butler, Dean and Head of School of Arts from UWE Bristol, to welcome Sir Richard Long.
Thank you so much, and it's great to see so many people here, and even more online, so fantastic evening. I'm delighted and honoured as the Dean and the Head of School of Arts to welcome one of our very own alumni, Sir Richard Long. This is a very special event. The Distinguished Speakers events have been fantastic this year, and what a way to continue this, and as part of the Being Human Festival. Richard Long has been at the forefront of contemporary art for over half a century, pioneering new art forms whilst walking on all 5 continents. Born in Bristol in 1945, Sir Richard studied at UWE Bristol, then a polytechnic known as the West of England College of Arts. He studied from 1962 to 1965. He has exhibited across the world, including places such as the Guggenheim in Bilbao in 2000. He represented Britain in the 37th Venice Biennale in 1976 and won the Turner Prize in 1989. And Richard was knighted in the 2018 honours list. Richard, as one of our alum, it is my pleasure to welcome you to both UWE Bristol and to the School of Arts. Thank you for accepting our invitation. So I'll now hand over to Andrew.
Thank you very much, and welcome everyone, and welcome to all those in the online audience as well. As mentioned, I've done many things in Bristol. One of the things I did work on in 2015 when Bristol was was Green Capital for Europe, was an exhibition of Richard's work which took place at Arnolfini, and I think was one of the highlights of that year. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. We're going to be talking about other aspects of Richard's life and work. There's plenty of time for questions, which I'll come to as we go through. And we've already had some questions submitted when people booked, and I've weaved some of these already into the conversation. But Richard wants to hear your questions, so we'll come to that in good time. Richard, let's start with, well, you knew you were an artist pretty much from the start almost, didn't you?
Well, I didn't know anything at the start.
You said when you were 2.
The question everyone says, when did you become an artist? And I say, I never became an artist. I was always an artist. So my first, is this working okay?
It is, yeah.
So my first memory, not just making art, my first memory of my life really was on my front path, making little volcanoes of dry earth, making a hole in the top and pouring water in them, sort of like to make mud pies or something. So nothing's changed in 79 years. So that was literally the first memory. So and then I went to Clifton National Infant School on Jacobs Wells. And I had an amazing headmistress because she seemed to know that I was an artist. So she gave me an easel, and I was allowed to miss morning service while everyone else was doing singing hymns and saying prayers. And I had my own easel, and I was allowed to have my own half-an-hour painting on my own every morning. So it was pretty amazing.
So that was from infants?
Yes, infants, yeah. But 5 to 7.
Yeah, 5 to 7.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I went to Bishop Road School, and then after my 11 plus, I went to Bedminster Down, which was a new school at that time. It only went up to the 3rd year. I had a very good art master there. And so every year I would be doing, because I was an artist, I was always doing the school plays. So I could do anything. I could paint all the scenery and everything. So it really was my language. No acting, just painting the scenery.
We're going to look at a piece of work you created, a mural in the school.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Do you want to...
So in my last, near the end of my time, my art master said, why didn't you just go in and, this was in the dining hall, and there was this 45-foot space, and he said, just paint a mural on it. So I lived in Redland, so I would cycle every day from Redland right up to Bedminster Down on my bike, and I'm wondering how I stood up. I must have stood on the tables to make it. Anyway, and he gave me one piece of advice which is extremely useful. He said, put the horizon high, which seems a stupid thing to say, but actually it was very practical. So if it had been low, I wouldn't have got anything in.
Did the school give you advice on what they wanted apart
No,
from that?
no, nothing. And I had no help. I had to. It was just watercolour paint. I mixed up all my own paint, everything. And he didn't even come because it was in the school holidays. So I went into an empty school for a couple of weeks, I think. Anyway.
And what was his reaction?
I don't know. I mean,
He must have had some reaction because this would have been up visible for quite a long time.
yeah, and in fact it lasted until it was such a jerry-built school that they pulled it down about 10 years ago. So they've rebuilt the school now, so it doesn't exist. So these old photographs, that's all that.
And that's you there?
Yeah, that's me, obviously.
Yeah.
Who else could it be?
What
So
about-
anyway, so then I left early the sixth form because I wanted to go to the art school, which is then called the West of England on White Ladies Road by the Victoria Rooms.
I just wanted to ask you, when we were putting this together, if we could move to that next picture of you've worked with schools.
Yeah, this is much later.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not chronological.
Have you worked with a lot of schools, or is
No.
this?
No.
Would you like to work with more schools?
No.
Are they not
Well,
very good clients?
I don't consider I do. I just put my work in the world, whether it's old people or schools or kids or anything. Doesn't matter. Anyway, this is out of order now. This one.
Yeah, we'll come
This
back.
is a school in Bath for a junior school. So then I went to the West of England, and so the first year and a half I was just doing life drawing and everything, which I absolutely loved. And then halfway through, they tried to energise, try and make the place more up to date, because it was quite an old-fashioned art school. So then we had some new, younger art teachers and there was one. And then up to that time, I was always just making paintings, really. And then they had a regime change, and and then we were allowed to work in our big studios at night, in the evenings. So and then we could we were given each term we were told that we could choose our own subject to make a big work. So one term I had I chose like aspects of human nature, like the ego and the id, and I made a huge, great environment about all that. And then another term, I made a big like stepping stone sculpture. But the one thing I can talk about is there was a little book called by The ABC of Relativity by Bertrand Russell. And so that's what I chose for my project, Relativity. And it was a fascinating book. It opened my eyes, because it taught that everything that we know about the world is to do only with our scale. And had all these different stories about it's about speed and relationships, and it was fascinating. Like say if you're in a train and you're travelling at 50 miles an hour, but the blinds are down, you don't know you're travelling. You only know you're travelling when you can see out the windows and all that stuff. Or we're in a world that's the Earth is travelling at 700 miles an hour, but we don't know it because we are the scale we are. So all that stuff. So actually, it was I was already into time and space, because that's exactly what relativity is about. So why don't we have the...
If we could move on to that picture. Just before that, this is an old prospectus we found of the University, of the Art College. You'll see there that 10 shillings and sixpence is each session, and they have to be paid direct to the Corporation of Bristol as the bills there. But let's move on to the artwork. And Richard, this is one that you created at the college, didn't you?
Yeah. So so because I was interested in all these aspects of, so one of the things about relativity is it also the position of the observer is very important. Anyway, so then I made this work that was like a figure that was obviously a sculpture, which is static, then a path which one could walk down. So that was like the movement. So and then actually on the wall you can actually see the essay that I wrote about relativity. And then there's all these strands of cotton or something that say you have to walk down the path. So that was a follow-up to my stepping stone sculpture. And I had a really good, one of the young blades that was brought in to energise us was John Epstein, who was a wonderful, he's probably only about 3 or 4 years older than me. And one thing I remember him saying, you know, Richard, I consider that my job here is to keep the corridors clean. So that's one thing I remember him saying that. Because in a way, at those times, Zen Buddhism and all that sort of Eastern stuff was just about sort of coming into the culture.
You said that he taught a course about nothing?
Sort of, yeah. He was making paintings about without any figuration. You know, I think he was into grey paintings. So anyway, that sort of, he opened my eyes in a way that there was a world beyond you know, still lives and life drawing and all that stuff.
Well, you were also, so you had people like Russell who were influencing you. You were very influenced by music, weren't you, in Bristol from an early stage? And
Yes.
the bands you used to see at the performers at the Colston Hall.
That's right. Yes, that's true. Yes. So, growing up, I spent my whole teenage years, you know, going to the Colston Hall, as was. So everyone from Segovia to the Beach Boys at the height of their cool, the Rolling Stones when they were second on the bill to the Swinging Blue Jeans, to Neil Diamond, to Emmylou Harris. I saw Chuck Berry, who's he was a huge hero of mine. I saw him twice. So there's a whole range of different music that was just on my doorstep.
And was Bristol quite good for those, apart from music, other aspects of culture? Was it a place?
No, not really. Oh yes, well then I would. Okay, so I used to work at the Old Vic as well. So actually, it's slightly everything back to front. So to cut a long story short, after 2.5 years, or 1.5, I can't remember, they threw me out of Bristol. And I was in Spain at the time with a friend, and when I came back, I thought it was very strange that my parents met me at Dover, and they told me, and they had been called in to meet the principal of the West of England, and he said, "We think your son is mad, and we're throwing him out." So I was quite shocked by that when I eventually heard about it, because my first year at the West of England, I got the painting prize, and then 2 years later they threw me out. So, but in hindsight, that was the biggest piece of luck they could ever have bestowed on a student, because it meant that I went to London, and London in the swinging 60s, you know, I was in Charing Cross Road at St Martin's School of Art. So, so the last bit of that story is that I think 5 years later I have a show at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, so I sent the principal an invitation card.
Did they respond?
No. Anyway, so then I had to where the old bit comes in about the different jobs. So then I spent like 3/4 of a year doing all different types of jobs. I helped built the Cumberland Basin flyover.
Really?
Yeah. I was the lowest level, so I just used to gather up all the sort of firewood and have big bonfires on the mud banks. And one of the jobs I had was just an odd job boy at the Bristol Vic. So I had all different types. I worked in the St Anne's paperboard mill factory.
This next picture we've
so
got.
So I was just saying, so all my childhood, the Bristol connection was that even though I was a city boy, we lived near the Downs. So in those days, the Downs didn't have any football pitches. So it was like really tall grass in the summertime. So it's a bit like Africa. So we spent our time, stalking lovers in the long grass, or we had bows and arrows to shoot crows and everything.
Oh right.
And then we used to cycle down to the towpath, and I used to chip little bits of quartz out of the the limestone gullies. So my whole environment was the Downs and the Avon Gorge. So, and that was obviously that was a big, without knowing it, that was a big influence on me. The fact that it was very tidal, and sometimes the river was full and sometimes it was empty. Yeah. And then my father would take us down to see the spring tides uphill every spring.
We're going to come back to the use of mud.
This
work here, cycling sculpture.
So now we've morphed into my time at St Martin's, and so this is one. It's called a cycling sculpture, where the idea was that I made it was in 16 parts, and so it was a cycle ride of a day night cycle ride right in the area north of London. And then each and I put a post in different places, like in village greens or in fields or by the roadside. And then there was a notice by each vertical thing saying this is one part of a sculpture of 16 similar parts surrounding an area of approximately 2,400 square miles. So the idea was that it was one sculpture, but you couldn't see it all at once. So you had to, it existed in a vast space. So that was really my first foray into thinking of using space to make a work of art.
And we've got some examples coming up of early work from that period as well. So the first is at Ashton Court.
Yes, yeah.
So tell us about this.
So this is from '67. That's just this is all in my so this relates to the okay. So this is Ashton Court before the Deer Park was divided it up. So that's a frame, and then through the frame you could see the circle in the background. So then if you go to the next slide, so this is this explains how the work was actually about 3 places. It was going back to the relativity, it was the place of the observer, and then the frame, and then the circle, and the work was completed by the observer standing in the right place.
Was that done for the college, or was it just the?
No. That was when I came home in the holidays, from St Martin's.
Mm.
So So.
The next one is a line made by walking, which is quite, it's important in many things that have been written about. You've written about, and just quickly go to the next one, Julie, and then come back to this one. That was one I put up, Boyhood Line, because that was one that was commissioned for the European Green Capital project, and Richard wrote about a line made by walking, about how important it is linked to that. This project.
I actually only made that work because I was asked to make it because I could only do the Arnolfini show if I made a work on the Downs. But
it was actually a contractual obligation.
yes, it was. Yeah. But it was actually placed on one of the many little footpaths that go across. The people walk across the Downs, and after a time they make these footpaths.
Could just go back to the line made by Wood. Just talk us through this one then.
Okay. So this is so one day I just took a train out of southwest London, and when the countryside started going by, I got out to the first station, found a nice field, and made this line by walking up and down. So it's a line, and it's a path, and it's a work of art, and it's made just by walking. And I realised that the visibility only depended on how many times I walked the line. So in a way, that was the start of realising that walking could become a medium to make art. So then art, almost like in the cycling sculpture, art could then become a journey in time and space. So one thing I realised just on the cusp of leaving Bristol was that when I was still working in the studio as a student, that the world outside, the whole world of nature, the environment, the locality of landscape offered a vast potential for me to be an artist and expand the language of art. Well, anyway, the art that I wanted to make. So that really, so that was it. That was really, so that was. I would say in a way that I'm part of that generation of the '60s that we were able to like reinvent the world. It happened in music and it happened in the theatre. That great, amazing post-war generation.
One thing that you talked about how it enabled use of this was often you didn't need land to do it. You could do it. It was free almost. You use natural materials. Yeah. What was there?
That makes me different from the American so-called land artists because they were very American. They had to buy the land out in the desert, and they had to have a lot of money to have the bulldozers, and then have a lot of money to fly in the planes to take photographs of it from the air. So it was, I would say that I'm very English in the fact that I was able to just go, to start with the moors of southwest England. So after the line made by walking, I say, well, after this one, the logical development was to do the same thing by walking a straight 10-mile line and do it on Exmoor. And instead of making a photograph, I would show the work as a line drawn on the map.
Should we have the next?
So again, I was, as well as making new work, I was having to change the language of what the actual art looked like. So this was a photograph, and the line on Exmoor was the map.
Yeah. So just let's move on to the island one. The next. Oh no, have we missed out the island? Oh, here we are. Island. This was another 19.
Yeah. So this is also from that same period, 1967, where the idea was that I showed this in the Arnolfini show. I made and it was a travelling sculpture. So there were it was hardboard in segments, painted white. And I could travel. So I made actually the first iteration of it was on the Downs, and then I went to Ireland and made this work in various locations in Ireland. The idea was that the work took on the characteristics of each place I chose to put it in. So the work became the place, and the place became the work. And of course, every place in the world is different, like every fingerprint is different. So each place was, it showed the uniqueness of every place.
We had a couple of questions I was going to throw in here from the online people who booked online. The first was walking through landscapes. Which have you found the most challenging to do?
I don't know. It's not a question. I don't battle the elements, but it's a wrong way to look at it. I mean, sometimes, you know, like climbing mountains is quite difficult sometimes, but I don't. It's not a problem. It's not a challenge. It's a very old-fashioned word in a way. You know, I put a sculpture on top of Kilimanjaro because I wanted to put a sculpture there. The fact that it's sometimes very difficult to get to a mountaintop is neither here nor there.
It's quite a remarkable thing to do with.
Yes, I'm just trying to think of a difficult. Well, I suppose. Yeah, one walk I had to abandon in Scotland because it was so wet that all the rivers were completely. I couldn't cross any of the rivers, so I was like trapped. So I would say that's a definition of a challenging walk, because I had to abandon it.
The other question, which is about the importance of photography for you, because
yes.
a lot of these works will disappear, but photography is what lasts in a way of your work.
Well, it's just yes, and I wouldn't be the artist I am if I didn't have a camera. Because if I made like in '72, I made my first big circle of stones in the Andes, and if I didn't have a camera to take a photograph of it and bring it back into the art world or into the world of you lot, and to show you what I'd done, it would have no. It would have a different meaning. It's not. I don't make it for myself. I make the works in the landscape to share with to put them to put the image in the world. So it's like the daisies, which we don't have a picture here. My idea is to make the daisies, the cross of daisies on the on the downs, was to have a man-made mark superimposed to made on a natural pattern of daisies. So that was the idea. Pure, and the thing that records that idea in the most best and most simple way is to take a photograph of it.
Let's move on to Textworks, because that's a key part of what you do. We've people who know Richard's work will know these. Those who don't, this is an example of how they're presented in exhibitions.
Well, strangely enough, this is an exhibition which is on now, and it's the first time I've actually had an exhibition of actual Textworks.
Yeah.
So they weren't really intended. Well, I don't know why. I don't really. I had no quite clear idea about how to present them in the early days. It was just something that I wanted to do.
If you just run on,
you know, using language.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to explain. So sometimes my, like say, I would do a walk across Ireland, putting a stone on the road every mile along the way. And it wasn't appropriate. It was to take a photograph of every stone. So therefore, I would tell a story about that. You know, I would count the number of stones in each county, for example. So it was called a line of 167 stones, a walk of 167 miles. So the walking and the sculpture were sort of had equal importance. So I began to realise that some of my sculptures, they were telling a story about a sculpture. So I think that's how the Textworks came about.
So we've got a couple more examples we'll just show you quickly. So this one is about music, actually. It's a bit influenced very strongly by your love of music. It's from Richard's notice board at home. As you'll notice, there's sellotape around.
No, I realised I didn't have a good copy of it. So
that's one example.
So this is so another thing to say about my Textworks. They're all about a different idea. So this was the idea about making a walk in Ireland with carrying a certain piece of music in my head every day, a different piece of music. So the first one is Roisin Dubh, which is a classic Irish air played on a tin whistle. The next one is like rock and roll music with unbelievable, great Chuck Berry, pure rock and roll, sung by wonderful voice of John Lennon. The next one, Return of the Grievous Angel, is a duet with Graham Parsons and Emmylou Harris, who I also saw at the Colston Hall a couple of times. Waiting for a Train is Jimmy Rogers is the singing, wonderful country blues singer from the 50s. He called the Singing Brakeman. And I Still Miss Someone is a duet between Johnny Cash and
Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan, when Dylan was making Nashville Skyline.
And then this is another example. We don't need to talk about it just in terms of what it looks like, because Richard's going to actually read some of the Textworks, which you've never done before, have you?
No.
Live?
No.
So this is... do you want to...
Well, hang on. Oh, yeah, all right.
Did you want to say something about this one?
No.
No, okay. I didn't think you did. I thought we were going to move straight on.
No, because it's all... well, I can do.
No, don't. Let's read this. It's, so the first one you're going to read is On Midsummer's Day.
Yeah, yeah, all right. So this is, in a way, this is from 1972, and in a way it's a prototype of a text work. On Midsummer's Day, a westward walk from Stonehenge at sunrise to Glastonbury by sunset, 45 miles following the day. So, in a way, it does exactly what it says on the tin. And it's a walk, which is, a lot of my work is like measuring myself against the world. And so it is about time. And it's about the time of the longest day. And many years later, I also used Stonehenge for the starting place of the walk that ended on a hilltop in Cornwall at the full solstice of the sun.
The next one we're going to have is a line of ground 226 miles long.
Oh yeah, this is a good one. You ready?
This has never been done before, this is...
Yeah, so this is a walk in Wales. So this is a line of ground 226 miles long. Road, coal tip, road, Roman mountain road, road, woodland, riverbed, road, stony track, road, mud track, road, grass lane, road, pebble ridge, road, bare rock lane, road, slurry, road.
Thank you. And then the third one is a walk of 7 cairns.
Coming at once, like London buses. Which
walk of 7 cairns is the next.
Oh yeah, right. So you all know what cairns are. They're piles of stones that traditionally mark footpaths, and so this is a. So basically, I'm making 7 sculptures, making my own piles of stones. So this is called Walk of 7 Cairns. A cairn built near sheep bones. A cairn built at a windy place. A cairn built where a raven flew off. A cairn built on the floodline of a river. A cairn built after a roll of thunder. A cairn built at my campsite. A cairn built in a hailstorm. So there you have it. Some 7 cairns.
One of the questions we had in advance was a teacher who wants to use your text works with his students, but how would he read them, he said. So it's, I think,
well,
you've given us a lesson there.
They're not really meant to be read.
No.
So I'm going, one of the projects I want to do maybe in the next year is to publish a book of all my textworks.
That'd be terrific.
So it's important. So even the ones I've just read you, they're all about a different idea. So even though walking is common to everyone in every society, ever since we walk out of Africa, people have walked. So it interested me in that from those very early days in 1967 that I could use walking in ways to make art, to express original ideas.
And another way.
And also, I like walking, so I was born to walk anyway. So I've also, another thing to say is that all my work comes from the things I like doing. Well, whereas like the cycling sculpture. So my bike that I had in London to make the cycling sculpture, occasionally I would cycle it back down from London to Bristol, on the old Bristol Bath Road. Yeah.
Bath Road.
Yeah.
Another material you use is mud.
Yeah.
So could we just quickly look at the mud one? So we've got one from the Royal West of England Academy in 2020.
That was a recent one.
That's a
I
recent
don't know
one,
if you saw that at the
And then
Road. Well, don't go so fast.
Oh no, I'm just giving the audience an example, and then we'll come back to this one. So yeah.
All right.
Do you want to say something?
No, that's no, not well. So basically, because I was always looking, there was when I was young, when I was a kid, there was much more shipping. So you have this amazing, like the boats would wash the mud banks, and because it's tidal mud, it's different. It's not like mud from a field. It's like when I mix this mud with water, it suspends in water. Whereas if you mix mud from a field in water, it just goes straight down to them. Anyway, so it has a different. Anyway, so sometimes I say, and it's about my energy really, and it's also about gravity. So it's about the wateriness of the mud, and it's made very quickly. So it's the energy of the speed of my hand makes the splashes. So I make the top half of the image, and nature makes the bottom half.
I want to just, because we started
And of course, it's all about cosmic variety. So I could do 20 of these, and they'd all be different.
Yeah. I'm just checking time. I can run an extra 10 minutes on my time because we started. So I want to move on to some of the gallery works, and if we could just skip over, Julia, and go to the one which is the River of Stones. That's okay.
No, no.
So this one here.
Yeah, that's the legend.
So tell us about this work, because I thought this was remarkable piece.
It's beautiful work.
Yeah.
So anyway, there was a group show in Jaipur in India, in this beautiful palace on a hilltop. And anyway, so I made this work in the sort of like the main courtyard, so it was a big space, but the actual entrances were very small. So then we had to figure out how to get these beautiful sandstones into the space. And then someone came up with the crazy, very beautiful idea of bicycle rickshaws. So all the stones were delivered by chaps with bicycle rickshaws.
One question is, what happens to work like this afterwards?
No, it's still. I mean,
still there.
It's for sale if anyone wants to.
Right. it's
No. So anyway, a couple of years ago, I had a show at the Rijksmuseum. So the Rijksmuseum got it out of India, and I showed a bit of it. They didn't have enough room to show the whole lot.
Yeah.
So one day, I want to remake this work in a big space, in either in the West or in the Middle East or somewhere.
So when they take the work or the part work here, do you then go and reinstall it in the new place?
Yes, I would, But some of the sculptures, I don't. Have you got any pictures of the indoor sculptures? No. Yes.
We have, haven't we? We've got.
Oh yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Yes. So somebody. So some of the sculptures I make for exhibitions, I make a certificate to explain how you make it and the density and the procedure to follow. And so they can be made by other people. So it's not like an object that is like a sculpture that is like a piece of bronze or something that's that stays the same. They're slightly amorphous and changeable. But in a way, all my work, whether it's in the landscape or like these works, it's about the changeability of life and the impermanence in a way. So a lot of my landscape works, they obviously disappear, but that's absolutely right and proper. The works in the landscape are not meant to be like famous monuments.
We're going to look at a couple of outside. When we did the Arnolfini exhibition in 2015, I remember we were talking about what happens, or I asked about what happens to the mud wall you created, and they said it's painted over, so it becomes part of the wall, as it were.
Yes, I mean, in an ideal world, I would like the mud works more to stay, and some do. Many more become permanent than you think. So I think when the Tate Modern opened, I made a mud work like the one you just saw, and I think they kept it by just putting another wall in front of it.
Let's look at some of the works outside, Julie. We've got we've got this project of White Deer Circle, and just move to the next one, which we can, and then we've got the New York one.
It's a very New York work.
It's a very New York one.
Stretch limo.
What?
Had a lot of trouble making that limo.
In the sense of?
Joke.
Oh, right, okay. Is that still there?
No, but it's in the collection.
It's in the collection.
So this is a typical work that could be reassembled following my instructions. So I give the size of it, the how to make the ellipse, because it's an ellipse, and the density, and stones are chosen at random, but with an equal distribution of sizes and heights. So.
And the next one we have is one you did in the Niger, which is an
That's
example of you're working in many different places, continents across the world.
So I have a good friend, a Swiss friend, and he was working in Agadez because it's a bit anyway. So in Niger, and he made this big. He makes these towers to see the sunset. So this, I said, so this photograph is taken from one of his towers, which you can't see. And then I made this circle for his work. So it's like a sort of complement of his work. And I didn't make the whole thing, so I just started it off, and then other people make. So this is one of the rare sculptures that I didn't make to completion myself.
Another area you've worked in is Japan, and we're going to have a textwork reading now, aren't we, from a walk in a green forest. This is from 1997.
Yeah, okay, hang on. Okay, so this is this is a good one. Okay, so this is from a walk in a green forest, and it's from the 8 days walking in the Shirakami Mountains from on Honshu in 1997. Two snakes, a double halo around the sun, croaking frogs, summer air condensing over winter snow, rain hammering on the tent, rivers turning from clear to muddy, cloudy night, no moon blackness. A mudslide, rocks cracking to the touch. Glowworms, watching moonlight turning into dawn. The footpath passing through a cleft tree. A night of thunder and lightning. A large chestnut tree struck down. A family of monkeys. The Milky Way shining between crests of a ravine. Magnolia trees like patches of snow. Cuckoos and woodpeckers. Sitting on a mountain top amid beeches and bamboo. The daytime racket of forest life. Sleeping by the sound of a river and a waterfall. Under a tree, the chaotic beat of raindrops. Streams rising and falling with passing downpours. Breaking camp and breaking a circle. A windless walk. Tadpoles and lilac. So I would say that's an example of that's much later than the earlier ones. I felt when I was how can I say this? I had to lay down certain parameters in the early works of being extremely abstract and tough, and I would say this is much more of a much more. Not exactly. Yeah, it is more literary in a way. Yeah.
We wanted to show a couple of pictures of the scale of your work, just how you work. So if we could bring those up. So this is an example from from Japan in 2013.
Yeah.
And if we go to the next one, Judy.
I'll
come back to that one. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
come on.
I was going to come back. I was just showing the audience what it was like.
Yeah.
Okay. Talk about this one.
So after the tsunami in Japan, a couple of years later, they a museum in the north of Honshu. They asked me to do an exhibition about the tsunami, to commemorate it in some way. So this is the exhibition I made, and obviously I had a huge wall, so that's me up there making it. And then this is the text work I made from my walk. Yeah. Yeah.
And then the next one is mud from the River Avon in the Guggenheim in Bilbao.
Yeah, it's a terrible image. Yeah, so I often say that if people can give me a beautiful big wall, I can make a big beautiful work. So I'm an opportunist in many ways. I'm an opportunist in art galleries, and I'm also an opportunist in the wilderness. So a lot of, you're not really seeing many of my landscape works, but I find all these beautiful places by walking in deserts or on the tundra or in Antarctica. I hope you're all coming to the after party, because you'll see a lot more of my work in the after party.
There's going to be a whole slideshow in there which you can see of lots more work. Obviously, we will only be able to show a small sample here in this hour. Just the next one is the installation of a text work.
Oh, that's the same work that show that you saw before.
Yeah, that's actually being installed. We're going to have another reading, aren't we? We've got the Natural Forces, which is...
Oh, yeah, that's another one. Okay, this one.
From Dartmoor.
Yeah.
And Dartmoor's really important to you, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I'm beginning to say now that because I'm famous for not being a studio artist. So now I say that all my life Dartmoor has been my studio.
Right.
And I've done many walks on Dartmoor. And this one is called Natural Forces. Walking with the force of gravity, in the force of the wind, through the force of rivers, along magnetic force by compass, over geological force on the Sticklepath fault. there's a very, very, very simple, one of my favourite Dartmoor Textworks. A day's walk across Dartmoor following the drift of the clouds. You like that one, don't you?
We're going to have a final text work, but we want to show the Mount Olympus project, because you were keen to talk about this at the end.
No, not talk about it, just show it.
You don't want to add to the fact that it was 7 days walking on Mount Olympus?
No, I don't necessarily. Bloody hell.
But you've got the text work which goes alongside it.
Yes, I have. Actually, it's not. It's strangely enough, it's not. Yeah, so that is actually Mount Olympus, and this is a bit of writing I wrote at the same time. Gods in the clouds and thunder, above butterflies and climbers, walking to the plateau of the Muses, sleeping on the pine cones of Dionysus, losing the way at the end of the day, an old dog snoring beside my tent. End of talk. I didn't even drink my gin and tonic.
And it was a large one as well, wasn't it? We've got time for some questions or comments. There are roving mics, so if you could signal, it's a bit...
How are we doing for time?
We're okay. We've got another 10 minutes or so. So if you could signal... Yes, I've got the first one down here. If you could keep your hand up. And
I don't actually need the
No, you
mic.
do, because it's being recorded,
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah.
I do need the mic. I'm interested in your relationship with the stones themselves. I wonder if you could say something about that.
I can. Well, one of the things I have said is that stones are what the world is made of. So because I just make stone sculptures, I can be an artist almost anywhere that I can find stones. So they're ubiquitous and common, and they don't belong to anyone. There's many things I can say about stones. So, like for example, walking from like Land's End to John O'Groats and putting a stone on the road every day. That's a story of a sculpture, like the stone lying across Ireland. So they don't disappear. So all the stones that I've made in my life, they're still there. But you only know about them through the narrative of my Textworks.
And do you collect them?
No, I don't really, no. No, I don't collect stones. No, I'm not into special stones. I mean, they're all special. And they're like fingerprints. Every stone is different. So it's like everything is connected in my work. So the mud works is about cosmic variety. Every splash is different to every other minute little micro splash. And every stone is different from any other stone. Like I say, so I can, it's a bit like water. I can only walk where I can find water. And quite often I can only make a sculpture where I can find stones.
Okay, yes, front row there. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm wondering what was the most difficult time in your career as an artist?
Oh, well, I don't... No. No. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I started very young. So it took me a long time to sort of realise what I was doing. I would say 30s and 40s were quite difficult. Because maybe I made quite a few shows that I was still learning how to make exhibitions. I went off very far. I could make work in the landscape easily and very well from a very early age. But so I say now I'm in my 70s, I know how to make exhibitions much better than I did in the old days.
Okay. Any more questions? Thank you.
Obviously, your work relies on you being able to walk. Do you foresee a time in the future when you might not be able
Next
to walk
week.
so easily? And you know, how will you go about working around that?
I just walk slower and not so far. Is a really good answer. I can't believe some of the mileages that I've walked in my life. I've walked across Spain 4 times, you know, like side to side, north to south. And I'm amazed at the mileages. So and like a lot of the walks I've made in the southwest of England, by all the country lanes on the Somerset levels and everything, I would in the old days when I was when I was younger, I would do about 35 to 40 miles a day, and that's road walking. But anyway, I've got a lot of mileage in my legs now, and so they're not as good as they don't work as well.
Yes, front row question here. Yeah. There's a mic coming to you. They're all on this side of the room. Are there any over here? Yeah, okay, I've got you second, Jeff. You can pass the mic along.
No, I'm just wondering, having
It's on here.
also walked a little bit in Japan, how all those rivers are kind of canalised and concreted in quite remote places. And I wondered what sort of a difference the fact of human interventions in the landscape make to your responses to the walks and things, or...
Yeah, actually, it's strange. I haven't noticed those things in Japan, but yeah, I would say that I'm much more obviously, all art is about choice. So some artists, very urban artists, or they could be pop artists or whatever. So my interest and my love is more like natural landscapes. So what you see in my work is what out of all the million choices I could make in my life and in the world, this is what I've chosen to show you. But another artist could choose concrete culverts or something.
Okay, yes, I've got one there, and then I've got the second one over there, yeah. Thank you.
Have all your works been made as a result of solo walks?
Not always solo.
Or have you made any with rambling groups or with friends?
No, but you know what? You won't believe this, but my parents actually met on a rambling group. No, I've made a fellow artist from St Martin's, this Hamish Fulton, and he's a walking artist, and we've made. In 1972, we made a wonderful trip to South America with in Bolivia, Peru, and Chile. And I've walked across Spain with Hamish a couple of times as well. So I don't always. No, sometimes I walk. Well, he's the only person I've really walked with seriously. And sometimes you have the combined. Two people can do a lot more. They have that sort of combined energy or something, or
yes, please.
And friendship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
You've talked a lot about earth and water and air.
Yeah.
And I just wondered whether you'd ever played with fire as well.
Yes, I could have shown you a textwork called To Light a Fire. So I have made, and I've made sculptures about ashes. No, I mean what I've shown. well, actually, it's not even the tip of the iceberg. What I'm showing you tonight is nothing, but I mean, so I have used many other natural things. So camps, well, I made a beautiful textwork in Mexico many years ago called 37 Campfires, right down into the canyon of the near Chihuahua. There's a canyon which is as deep as the Grand Canyon. Mm. So on some walks, I just rely on campfires, which is wonderful. Even no tent, just campfires.
Got time for a couple more, have we, Julie? Yeah. Is there any more who want to ask a question? Can I just ask you two quick questions that we were going to ask, but we didn't. The first is about the music.
Oh yeah.
And about the way you integrated Bob Dylan's work in the creation of one of your artist books, and how artist books you create these works.
Oh yeah. Okay. So that's one thing that I've always been interested in, the different ways that I can put my work in the world. So I can make a circle in Mexico, and as I'm taking a photograph, a local shepherd can walk by, and he doesn't see it, whereas someone in a museum can see a circle of stones, and they register that it's a work of art, and it's a you know, so what was
we were
the
talking about the creation of artist books, and you've got one to show us.
Yeah,
actually.
no. So one way that I've put my work in the world is even postcards and artist books. And in the old days, I made very primitive little books. And so one book that they have some copies there is and it's called Nowhere, and it comes from something from a Dylan song. Genghis Khan he could not keep, all his kings supplied with sleep. We'll climb that hill no matter how steep, but we still ain't going nowhere.
That's our time up, I think. Julia?
Sir Richard Long, everyone. So we have a very full house here tonight. I hope you don't mind me saying some thank yous, because a lot has gone into this event, so there's lots of people to thank. Thank you firstly to the Being Human Festival for giving us the opportunity to be a part of their festival this year, and the Watershed for hosting us. Thank you to UWE Bristol School of Arts and the alumni team for all of their support of the event. Thank you to Richard's photographer, Steve Jackson, for making so much of Richard's catalogue accessible to us this evening. Thank you to Madeline and Charlotte at the New Art Centre at Roche Court for offering our audience a chance to enjoy their sculpture park and gallery at a remove, where Richard's work is exhibited. Their flyers and catalogues will be displayed in Waterside 3 alongside your drinks. Also on display, I have a very special announcement of a special signed limited edition Richard Long artwork for sale, shared by the Tate in London. So a huge thank you to Tate director Maria Bolshaw, as well as the limited editions manager Erin Cork, for making this possible. Richard Long generously produced the screen print you'll see, titled This Too Will Pass, in 2021 to support Tate, based in London, St Ives and Liverpool. And they are delighted to offer an opportunity to view and consider purchasing it this evening. I believe there's only 18 left in existence. Profits from the sale of this edition go towards Tate, enabling the fulfilment of Tate's mission to provide access to art for everyone. The particular print on display is an example print only. The full information on how you could purchase your own copy will be on the table in front of it. Our partners, Bookhouse, have an exciting array of books for sale, and Richard, I believe, is up for signing a few books for you. Maybe. Including 3 special copies of Richard's most recent book, Many Rivers to Cross, And whilst we offer these events for free, we'd be really grateful in turn that you fill out one of our feedback forms that you'll be emailed at the end of the week. Being Human would also be grateful to hear back from you. There are QR codes hanging up to enable your feedback to them inside the next room. A final thanks to Sir Richard Long for sharing all of his fascinating work with us this evening and for all the time he spent with myself and Andrew in advance in support of this evening. So please do now go through towards side 3 to enjoy all these offerings along a glass of delectable something. Thank you so much.